We lost a great man this last week. I know we lost a lot of people throughout the world, but Charlie Kirk's death has shook the world. He was one person that went right to the battlefield. This is a message about America, not only Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was a great man. I don't know whether he could ever be replaced exactly like it was. He went to the battlefield. The battlefield are the colleges and the streets in some of the worst areas of the world where Marxist, communist, fascist, this extreme left that we have in the world. He went right to the battlefield. He went there and confronted them with love. He said he wanted to be remembered for his faith in Jesus Christ, which is wonderful. And he will be. That will be. I saw his wife on television. Let's see how it all started. How did it all start? Back after World War I and during World War II, we had McCarthyism, which now that they're putting down that he was such a terrible person. McCarthy knew a whole lot more about things than what we do today, and yet we see the results of what he was afraid of and what he was fighting today. There was a lot of Jewish people came to America, and they hit Los Angeles and they hit New York especially. And when they were run out of Russia and Germany, they were Marxist. Karl Marx, communist. When they went into the land of Israel, they established kibbutz, which were communist. We see that in the politics in New York, Massachusetts, all where this Jewish influence was. I'm not putting down the Jewish people now. But the teachers, the psychologists, and the teachers were Marxist in their philosophy. They got involved in New York, and they affected the universities with Marxism, and they did the same thing in Los Angeles, in the universities, UCLA, USC, Greenson down there. Greenson was Marilyn Monroe's psychologist. When she was married to Arthur Miller in New York, he was a communist. He was a writer, but he was a communist. They were communist people. She was not. But she knew a lot of things, knew a lot of people. They were infiltrating the movie industry. Why is the leftist movie industry like it is today? It's because of the communism. The movie stars have money to go to psychologists, and the psychologists are full of communism, Marxism. And it came from these Jewish psychologists at the time. They transfers their ideas in different colleges throughout America, especially in the East Coast and in Los Angeles and in San Francisco. They got into universities. They became wealthy in their occupations and very influential. Let's go back now. We're talking about Charlie Kirk and what he died for. And because of it. Marilyn Monroe was surrounded by Marxist communists. They were watching her every movement. And she was having an affair with John Kennedy. Supposedly she had a child by him. And with Robert Kennedy. J. Edgar Hoover was all over the Kennedys. Of course, you know, he was a homosexual. And his partner in the FBI was his lover for his life, basically. They say that he was bisexual sometimes because he did have affairs with some of the Hollywood women. But the awful Mafia had a lot of expose on J. Edgar Hoover. And he wouldn't even admit there was a mafia in America. We're seeing all of this come together now. J. Edgar Hoover was really strong anti-communist. And he was watching Marilyn Monroe and John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy. He had a lot on them. The whole story was, now this is how everything that we are, what we're in the middle of today is what began right there. John Kennedy was a very sexually active person. Had a lot of victims, and a lot of girlfriends from the Mafia and Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe really thought that he would marry her. And Greenson, where she'd go to the psychologist now, and they would have communist, Marxist meetings in their homes and invite all these movie stars there. Marilyn Monroe would go there. She didn't adhere to that at all. She had been baptized in Amy McPherson's church. She had become a Christian Scientist. She was converted to Judaism when she was married to Oscar Miller. And when she died, basically she was a convert and still a proselyte of Judaism when she died. But a lot of the Jews, many of the Jewish people in America are left-wing. They're Democrats. Now, I have known some, one very special to me, one of the doctors that I knew, Jan Minsick. I will give his name because I don't think that would bother him at all. And he just recently died of a heart attack. But he used to tell me, he said, most of my people, most of my nationality are Democrats. They believe in this liberal left-wing stuff. But he said, I think they're going to wake up. And during this last election, they woke up with Trump. He won the first election, he won the second election, he won the third election, but it was stolen from him. Now, go back to Marilyn Monroe. Greenson was writing down notes for her to ask John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy, asking them, she said, I want to be, she had a very high IQ, by the way. She wanted them to look at her more for her intellect than for her body. Simple as that. And she was falling for this, but they were getting the information. What they tell you, what they tell you. She was being kind of innocent with this thing. Peter Lawford loaned his beach house to them for their rendezvous, and he was involved with it too. It went on and on and on. Greenson was a teacher at UCLA, USC, his department there where he taught psychology. And all of the students there, you find, where was Charlie Kirk going to the universities where they had been infiltrated with a fifth column throughout America now? All these rich people putting in there, and I'm glad that the Jewish society now in America is turning more toward the center than their left wing that they had for a long time. And Israel's God's nation, by the way, that's it. And she will have a place with the Lord for 1,000 years when God calls her back into his service after the church age. Well, Marilyn Monroe was getting really angry at Kennedy's, and she was going to expose them. And what I'm giving to you, I've learned from all these years of reading, and then the people involved, said this. The assassination of Kennedy. I'll say this. The left wing of America is extremely violent. Left wing America is Marxist, fascist. That's why they're violent. How do the Marxists take over? With violence. They cause confusion in nature, in a nation, and they take it over. They cause chaos and they take it over. And then the very people that put them in there, they usually get rid of them because they can't handle them. And that's exactly what Stalin did, and Lenin. Well, look at this. They were revolutionaries. Well, what we're seeing today, just before Charlie Kirk was murdered and assassinated, a political assassination, the leaders, the left-wing leaders of America were calling for violence. Do whatever you can. We're in a war. We got to win this war. And they did the streets of BLM. We see all this. When George Floyd died of an overdose of fentanyl, which is Biden brought in anyway, in the last 4 years that administration in America was infiltrated with it, because they want it here. They want it. They want the people. They want the people depopulated in America so they can bring in their forces. That's what they do. This is Marxism. This is fascism. And they call Trump a fascist and a Marxist. He's not. When I was preaching, and I might mention during Obama's third term and Biden's as a puppet, many things that I was, what I'd say, like some of the things I've said today, was taken off, and I was considered a threat to society. That's not freedom of speech. Charlie Kirk believed in freedom of speech. And the left wing has freedom of speech, but you don't call for the death of other people. Those that really believe that will go out and kill people. They'll do it. You know, they feel like they're martyrs in themselves for the cause. Why does your young people go to school and colleges and you go there for 3 or 4 years and they come out and they're completely brainwashed with Marxism, with the radical left? Because of what happened in the 30s and 40s in America. That's what Ronald Reagan was trying to fight. That's what was going on in Hollywood. You can see now, it really happened, people. It was really there all the time. And that's how it got where we are today. When Obama ran for his presidency, everything that he said he was going to do, he did the opposite. He totally did the opposite of what he said. He was going to clean out Washington. He made the swamp swampier and greener and more powerful. Trump is really trying to clean it up. Got Kash Patel, we got these people out there, some of the greatest administrations so far. They're fighting everything that happened from 1930s to today. No Republican ever killed a Democrat except for the Bush regime and those associates with him. A guy came forward here a few years ago, James Files. He was identified as one of the shooters or involved in the Kennedy assassination. He admitted that he's not in prison anymore. He was in prison. They tried to assassinate him, CIA mainly. He was a CIA man. They were all CIA. CIA and Mafia were like this. You know. Anyway, we see what happened in Dallas. James Files said he came there. Charles Nicoletti told him to go. Take the guns there. He was not supposed to be a shooter. He was only 21 years old, but he was in the CIA. He was in Vietnam. And he was a sharpshooter. He shot sometimes, making shots over a mile away. And he went there. He met Lee Harvey Oswald, met him there, showed him around town. Phillips were what they call the handlers for all these people. He was the handlers for James Cloud, for Oswald, for Jack Ruby, all the whole bunch. And we're talking about the communism now. Now the communism in Hollywood had to mix up with the CIA and the Department of Justice, the Attorney General of the United States, to cover their backs over Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn, and this is what Charlie Kirk died for. This is where it all began. Just a few weeks before Marilyn Monroe was killed, they invited her to go up to the Cal Nevada restaurant casino in Tahoe. She went up there, they drugged her and raped her. Joe DiMaggio was over there, they wouldn't let him near her at all. They were talking about getting back together. He really loved her and she trusted him, and he protected her best he could. They had her put in a mental institution in New York. He got her out of that. That was the Marxism that was involved in that. Anyway, they raped, drugged her, and when they sent her off on an airplane, she had to be met and had to be about carried back home. They wanted to scare her. Roselli, Nicoletti, Sam Giancana, all raped her. And they videotaped it and took pictures of it. To scare her. To shut up about the Kennedys because they were involved. They got him in there. And the Kennedy was going, Robert Kennedy was going after the very mob that got him and got his brother elected. And his father was involved. All of this comes down. She goes back to Hollywood. She's going to meet Monday. RFK Sr. goes and threatens her. Peter Lawford's there. They fly from back east. Charles Nicoletti goes. Johnny Roselli. They hold her down and they give her a shot underneath her arm. And they ordered all the people out of the house. They left her for dead. Ralph Greenson was there also. That was her psychologist. Now they're moving him the way they want to. And he's going to do what they tell him to do. And he's going to have to hide what he did with the Marilyn Monroe. Giving her the questions to ask these two men. J. Edgar Hoover basically ordered the killing. She's too dangerous. He was involved in the killing of John Kennedy and RFK both. He put his best buddy in there, LBJ. Now, they killed Marilyn Monroe basically, but then the people came back in the house and there was an ambulance not too far away and they called an ambulance and the ambulance got there. They revived her somewhat and had her heart beating and her breathing again. All these people were shut up. The Attorney General of the United States was involved. The DA of Los Angeles was in their pocket. You can find all this out. I mean, this is from many sources that I've read, everything I've read on this, including James Files' confession. He said Roselli and Nicoletti were involved in it. They held her down, they brought her back to life, and then they send Ralph Greenson in there, her psychologist. Now he can give shots and do all that kind of stuff. And he told the ambulance personnel, he said, I have to do this. He got out a needle to give her a shot in her heart. And he broke her rib. He didn't care he was going to kill her anyway. And jabbed that in her heart and gave her a shot and killed her. And he said, well, I have to do that. And he pronounced her dead. All of this is covered up. But now it's coming out in the open. The woman that was there, The housekeeper was a psychiatric nurse from Greenson. Her son-in-law was a groundskeeper and a maintenance man. He came forward, she came forward finally and told what happened. The neighbors, what they heard, all corresponded with what they said later on. Ralph Greenson, when he died, he had a box that said Marilyn Monroe on it. They know what happened to her. Now we come to the colleges in America. How did this fascist, Marxist ideology get into colleges? That's where it came from. It went to the film industry, it went to all the psychologists, they got involved with colleges, all the major universities, and not only that, then we have the Islamic influence coming from the Middle East with all their money, putting people in the college, putting the fifth column in the colleges to make people hate America. America's a bad deal. You're raised by it. The people that came here that got on welfare and subsidies, and then they hate America. And America gave them what they have. Charlie Kirk became a victim of it all. He, it's said, used to go out and listen to Rush Limbaugh on the radio in school, for his lunch hour. He was even greater than him. He could sit there and under fire personally and answer off the top of his head all types of figures and statistics, and with a caring, loving Christian heart, he would instruct these people, listen to other people besides your bought and paid for professors, which are all now instilled with this. You want to know how your children, your grandchildren hate you? Because you're stupid, you don't know anything. That's what they tell them, that we don't know anything. In Native American culture, you respected your elders. You never talked back to them. You may have disagreed with them, but you didn't talk back. That was called respect. In the South, in the culture that I was raised in, not Native American culture, and from the South, respecting your elders was tremendous. Respecting the advice of your elders was life and death sometimes. We had a man for several years that stood up and went into the battlefield, not with knives and guns. He said that what he was doing in America to infiltrate these communist, Marxist, Nazi type ideology, this violence. In America today, are cities burning down because Charlie Kirk was murdered? But when George Floyd, any excuse they'd make, the governor of Minnesota sat there and watched the city burn, wouldn't do anything, because they are this ideology. But the thing about it is what they are is what they call their opponents. If they call you a communist, they call they're not a communist, because that's what they are. But if they call you a fascist or a Marxist, that's what they are. They are violent. That's the way to get things done. How did Stalin and Lenin take over? How did Hitler take over? They kill people. They have violence. They riot in the streets. And they take over by violence. You can vote communism in, but you can't ever get rid of it. Obama was legally elected 2 times, but we never got rid of him. Now we know all the bad things he did. Will he ever be prosecuted? Will Adam Schiff be prosecuted? Nancy Pelosi for what they've done? Rush Hoover? All of these people? that have committed crimes that they ought to answer for? Will they be prosecuted? Well, let's see how far it goes. Because they are part of this violent society. Violent society. January 6th, people went from all over the United States to stand behind a president they believed was elected again. They believed that the election was stolen. And a minority of these infiltrators went in and they tore into the Capitol. And the people that were just there on the outside or whatever, they arrested a lot of these people. They want to make you so afraid that you will not speak the truth, that you will just go along with it. They will kill you. Because that's the way they do things. Is America burning down today because they killed a hero in America? No. But I hope people wake up and see what's happening. It started after World War I and World War II. It infiltrated America to the Jewish left wing that came out of Russia and it came out of Germany. God placed them back into the promised land, May the 14th, 1948, and they put it to books. It is a socialist society there today. But many are waking up in America. How can you vote for people that are calling for your own national death today? Charlie Kirk defended Israel, and I do too. I may not like everything Israel does, but I guarantee you that's God's nation, and I'm sure not going to stand against them. Because you're going to lose. That's simple as that. You're not going to win. Because God is behind them, and God is going to place them again after the tribulation period. How close are we to the tribulation period? I don't know, but boy, things don't look good. But what about America in the end times? This is what I have come to believe in my own heart from what I've seen. I'm not a prophet. I'm not inspired of God. I am a student of history, and I am a student of the Bible. But during that tribulation period, those people that become Christians are going to have some place to flee. Israel's going to flee to a place down toward Petra at the middle of the tribulation period, and God's going to protect them there. Where do you think the Christians can flee? Where is one of the only safe places for Christians in the world today? The United States of America. Did God raise this nation up to protect those people for a stronghold in the last days? Possibly. I believe when the rapture comes, everybody that's saved is going to be taken away. But there's a whole lot of people that were false believers in that period of time, and I think they'll, after they are left behind, you know, the movie series Left Behind, they're going to be saved. There's going to be a lot of Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses possibly saved, and Catholics during that period of time, and they're going to have some place to go. And of course, you know, fly an airplane, you can do whatever you want to, but one of the only places I think will be safe is the United States of America. 5 out of every 6 Gentiles in the world will be killed during that period of time, but there's 1/6 left. I think America, because of Donald Trump, because of Cash Patel and some of these great leaders that we have today, will be a place set aside, even though many of them will be gone. But the safe house is installed. It's there. And I think many of the people that are religiously wrong today will become right once the rapture happens. They may not believe it in it or whatever, maybe in some cult or whatever. And Charlie Kirk has helped make that possible. He's already in his reward now. were left behind here. Charlie Kirk was a hero. He was not a pastor. He was more of an evangelist. And like Paul was a great debater, he debated with the people of his day. Charlie Kirk debated with the people of his day. Paul wasn't so much a pastor as he was a missionary, an apostle. Charlie Kirk wasn't an apostle, but Charlie Kirk had an unction from God, a calling in your heart. You know, there are different kind of callings. The gifts are gone in the Bible. They all cease except faith, hope, and love. But the calling of God is another thing. I believe God called that man probably from a very young age to do something. I remember I was in a hyper charismatic church, and I was saved in that church in spite of it. My grandmother, my ex-step-grandmother, went to the altar with me. I was up there, and she led me to the Lord. And I studied the Bible. They gave me a Bible, and boy, I studied it. May not preached it, but I studied it. And from that period of time on in my life, when I was very young, I felt God was going to call me. I felt God, I was supposed to be up there preaching. And I sure didn't want to. I was very bashful. And the calling of God does not ever disappear. It is something, the calling and election is kind of like being elected to do something by God. I couldn't quit preaching if I wanted to, because it's a calling. It's something you just got to do. Charlie Kirk spent his life trying to deliver the call that God had given to him. God calls pastors, he calls deacons. Sometimes he calls people like Charlie Kirk. I hope that there will be somebody rise up in that organization to carry on his work. We've got a lot of recordings and things. I'm going to listen to a lot of them. I appreciated the young man. Only 32 years old. But he lived a full life. In 32 years, he did more than what many of us will do in 75 years. He was God's man on the job. Like Paul that was beheaded, Peter that was crucified upside down, he was shot. He is a martyr. Martyr means witness. He was a witness. A real witness for the gospel, a real witness for truth. And he studied, and he had a recall that was unbelievable. The recall that he had under fire when he was out dealing with these people, and the ability to use every facet of his learning and understanding on that job that day was amazing. Our Father, we thank you for this man and what he did in his short life, but dynamic life, and the structure that he left behind, and the love for him all over the world, for those conservatives that are living in many places in very hard political situations. Please forgive me where I failed you. Please use this message to let the world and America understand what we're fighting. Fighting a very violent people. We try to fight them with votes. They fight with bullets, they fight with fire, they fight with assassinations. That's the way Marxists, fascists do. It's an illegitimate society. It takes over. It's violent. It's Hamas. Father, please help me to go on and preach your word. And I know that Charlie Kirk, he talked about his faith in your son, in the death, burial, and resurrection. And he tried to follow you in every way that he knew, and I know the light he had, he followed you with. He was not your pastor, he was not your apostle, but he was your evangelist in a field that's very dangerous, that cost him his life, but he gave it willingly. In Jesus' name we pray.